So, Harriet, when you walk onto a site, and you've been involved in some really big, sexy projects, which we'll touch on a little bit later, but when you walk onto a site, for the very first time, what are you seeing that jumps out on you? What are the things that your experience sort of positions you to spot really, really early on? What are you looking for?
I think, honestly, it starts before I go on site, because really, ideally, I'm involved from stage zero, kind of talking in, architectural terms, but from the briefing client very, very early on stages. So what I want to be seeing on site is immediately activity that's matching the client brief and what was agreed, approved, signed off from the very beginning, that is matching budget, is matching program, is matching what was set out by the client from the very start. And that's always kind of where my attention's diverted to then be feeding that back into the client of what I'm seeing and hearing from the teams on site. And
just to sort of reverse backwards a little bit, you're a member of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, which is a massive mouthful, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm a member of the Arboricultural Society.
Oh, yours is fancier than mine.
Well, no, it really isn't. It really isn't. Let's hope there's no ARBs listening to the Ask the ARB podcast. It's really not. The funny thing about that is that it's I suppose a bit like Rick's. It's an absolute battle to get through everything and keep up on the CPD and all that side of stuff.
But the letters do matter. It's a bit of a rubber stamp. But yeah, it mattered, and it was really important to me to get that.
Yeah, 100. What is the process to go through to get that?
Oh, now you're asking. So basically, you keep a diary for either 12 months or 24 months, depending on your background. I mean, I'd done a master's in construction project management, which bumped me through the process a little bit quicker. And then you write a case study, you have to tick off all your competencies, so you have to kind of give examples of when you've administered a contract, or you've dealt with conflict, or you've managed a budget and all this kind of thing. And then you submit this big wad of documents to RICS, and then you sit your what's called assessment of professional competency, so your APC.
Okay.
And that's now done on Teams. I think historically pre-COVID it was done in person, but it's all online now. And so you sit this 45-minute or 60-minute, I think, sort of viva, really, presentation and an interview, and then after that they decide if you're kind of legit project manager. But I think I really wanted that, because anybody can call themselves a project manager, and you can kind of be a PM, project manager, but it can mean anything. But I think to be chartered kind of just gave me that robustness to kind of be like, no, I do know what I'm doing.
So there'll be people listening who we've spoken for a few minutes. There'll be people listening who have no idea what a project manager is or what a project manager does, or their project might be just on the cusp of where it needs a project manager. Now, my experience of project managers is what I've seen on the telly and all these programs, grand designs, where they try and project manage it themselves, and the whole thing goes to rat shit. So, for the listeners, can you describe what the actual role is of a project manager, and where you fit, and more importantly, why people should pay the fees?
So I think the tightest definition I would give is that you're bringing a structure and a framework to what can be a really complicated, chaotic process that doesn't necessarily need to be complicated and chaotic. So project manager, you are looking after a team, so you're bringing in the relevant expertise, you're establishing a brief, you're establishing a budget, you're establishing a program, identifying the risks that are involved in all of the above, and kind of bringing that into one understandable process that your client will hopefully sign off and pay for and want to kind of deliver on, and then seeing that through right till the very end. So it's this constant dance of spinning the right plates at the right time. You have to be a really personable person, because project management, it's very process driven, but it's very people driven, and you have to kind of work out personalities, dynamics across teams, because you're dealing with clients, designers, contractors, all these stakeholders that they've all got a vested interest in their particular piece of the pie, but you as the PM kind of sit in the middle of that and kind of drawing the strands in, say, okay, which bit needs to be where, when, and kind of keep that dance going.
Yeah.
And that was a bit that I love that process.
You love stopping people throwing things at each other.
Yeah.
Friday afternoon hand grenade email of something that's gone terribly wrong.
Yeah, everyone loves a Friday email. But I think it's really important to be the kind of person people want to work with. People have reputations. It's a small industry.
Yeah.
And I think, I know when to lay it down. Trust me.
Yeah.
But I get on with people, and I'm quite good at kind of finding my in, even the most difficult, site manager or the most kind of difficult commercial manager on the contractor side. I'm quite good at finding an in and just kind of making it work.
Very much sit between the client and everybody else, essentially.
Yeah.
Literally
Yeah.
right at the very top, dealing
Yeah.
with absolutely everything.
Yeah, and I'm a project manager that I have always and always will kind of work client side. So, often people hear project manager and they kind of instantly think contractor, and kind of the people who are overseeing the technical side of the project management of the actual build delivery, whereas I sit and kind of as what you'd call an employer's agent, where I represent the client and I'm defending their best interests and making sure that, what they're envisioning happens on their behalf with that technical expertise.
Yeah. So this is it is an absolute key role in any kind of development scheme.
Yeah.
And obviously, there is a hockey stick, there's an exponential curve of value, I would imagine, that you can add as these project sizes ramp up. But I mean, how on earth does one get into this sector? How have you ended up doing this?
Yeah.
What's your journey?
It's quite unconventional.
I saw a little bit on LinkedIn when I was doing some research, but I want it in your words so I don't butcher it.
Yeah. So I have always been kind of in love with hospitality and hotels, and I from fairly early on in my career I came into the hotels world. So first job out of uni, I went and worked for Gleneagles Hotel up in Perthshire. Most amazing place to live and work, because through uni I'd kind of got a taste for luxury hospitality working at Wimbledon.
Right, okay.
And really kind of opened my eyes to that world of kind of high-end service, 5-star delivery. And I thought, yeah, that's the world I want to be in. So kind of took a chance, moved up to, rural Scotland, got my teeth into, working in the restaurants, working in reception, kind of worked my way up through management, got punched through to assistant reception manager, all this kind of thing. Loved it. And then kind of thought, what else is kind of here in the hotel world? And at that time, it was just after the Ryder Cup.
Right,
in 2014,
okay. Yeah.
So got to experience that kind of on the ops side, and at that point Diageo owned Gleneagles and then sold it to Ennismore,
right? Which
at that point was really in its infancy, and I think at that time they only had 3 other assets. Now it's obviously a global player in the hotel game since it partnered with Accor, but they bought Gleneagles and there were things just happening, and I didn't really know what was going on, but I knew it was an exciting time for the hotel. And I remember, and it was really brazen because I was quite young and inexperienced, but I went to the general manager at the time and just sort of said, I want to be involved in projects. And I owe him a lot because he just humoured me. And he said, okay, we'll stick you in the team and you can, take notes, keep yourself busy, whatever, and then we'll put you back in ops, but you can have a go. And anyway, I kind of, They put me in this team temporarily. I sort of got busy, just got my head down, and proved that I was quite useful. And then the project director, who was kind of overseeing the master plan development for the hotel, said, I need a hand, you can come work for me.
Yeah.
So got a full-time job with him. I then realised I had huge knowledge gaps, so said, I think I want to go do a master's, and I think I can do it part-time whilst I work full-time. And I said, okay, so I kind of negotiated that I would work Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. till 4 p.m, so that I had Fridays off to go to uni. Yeah. So I kind of spinning all these plates, made it all work. And during that time, we were doing everything kind of up at the hotel, the restaurant refurbishments, the bedrooms, the function rooms. It was a full sweep of the entire property, in excess of 20 million, which at that time was a lot of money. I mean, I think in today's money, it would probably be double that. But that was a huge opportunity. Then had the chance to go and do a Gleneagles townhouse. So that then kind of came into the fore in that suite of projects. Then COVID happened. And I'd done a lot. I just graduated, so I was quite lucky. I got my master's done, got all the kind of full suite of projects done, and then was furloughed and had the opportunity to go over to Ireland to work with a friend of mine he's an entrepreneur, amazing guy, who owns a surf company.
Oh, right.
And they had accommodation and they had a shop and retail, and it was during that staycation COVID boom.
Yeah.
So they sort of were like, actually, we need to expand. You know, lots of other industries were sort of collapsing, but staycation tourism was huge. So I went out there, what was meant to be temporarily for the summer to kind of ride out my furlough. And I actually was like, this is really exciting. I love what this guy's doing. I like working with entrepreneur decision makers. And this is kind of relevant to kind of where I popped out the other end.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay here. So I kind of worked with him for almost 3 years, delivered some really fun projects there and kind of dipped my toes back into ops. And then realised I was getting itchy feet to get back into projects kind of proper again, so to kind of get back in the hotel development world. And then, through a connection, I got recommended to a consultancy in Edinburgh, who I remember had a Teams call with them because I was still living in Ireland, had a Teams call, and the next day I had a written offer, and then the next week I moved back to Scotland, and that was kind of it. And I was with them for 4 years and deliver some really cool projects.
And we'll get to that in a minute, but it's a funny one, the whole COVID thing.
Yes.
Because I speak to a lot of people, I've got a number of businesses of which this is one of them.
Yeah.
And I speak to a lot of different people, a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, and also a lot of people in the development space, etc. And it goes one of two ways with COVID.
Yeah.
It was either a huge slap round the face and they took a real backward step, or people accelerated forwards.
Yeah.
It's nuts. I mean, our business, our survey and inspection business, the arboricultural and ecological consultancy, that really ramped forwards for exactly what you highlighted there. It was the whole staycation thing. People were living and working at home. There was glamping pods going up left, right and centre. People wanted a garden room at the bottom of their garden in London to work from. People were moving, so they were going, do you know what, actually I've got this £2 million house in Surrey, I can buy an estate in Scotland for that, and then I want to renovate it, I need to do it up and this, that and the other. Hotels were dirt cheap for us, so terrible for the hotel sector, great for us. We were getting hotels for free, our surveyors, just because they wanted to keep it all ticking over. And it got to the point where I was giving cash to staff, and the staff were just like leaving cash on the bed and things like that, you know, just to.
I guess hotels want to keep their taps running, don't they? And
thanks for what you've done.
Yeah.
The roads were quiet, fuel was cheap. I mean, my God, we're paying for it now, but at the time, it was a real accelerator.
I think there were opportunities if you could kind of find them. Obviously, it was a very challenging time, but there was opportunity, particularly within development, because
definitely.
Operations stopped completely. But for those who were in the development game, it was kind of like, okay, can we make hay here? There's an opportunity.
Yeah. So during your time, was it 3 years you were with the firm in Edinburgh?
Just over
3 years. So
years,
during that time, I'm going to get you to name drop. Is there any big projects there that you were sort of personally involved in that you could talk about?
Yeah, I mean, we did some amazing projects, and the consultancy I was with really specialised in hotels.
Yes.
I had the chance to be involved in. I mean, the Belfry was a pretty special one.
That
was
incredible.
An enormous kind of £90 million full master plan development. So from every element you could think of, from I suddenly became an expert in sewage, wastewater treatment plants, electrical upgrades. It was new build, it was refurb, it was absolutely everything. Did some super projects in London. The Sloane Club was an amazing project, a real tricky one. That was a real labour of love, but that was one I was really proud of delivering, because an interior cut and carve like that in Kensington and Chelsea comes with a lot of challenges. So that was a great one. We've done work at Cromlix, so that was an amazing opportunity. The Goodwood Estate down south as well, on the south coast. So a real spectrum of some brilliant hotels.
So, based in Edinburgh, for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Goodwood, Sussex. Sussex, right down on the south. I mean, we've got very similar accents. I'm guessing we're probably from
Yeah,
similar
no,
parts of the
neither
world.
of us are locals.
I mean, I was Hampshire originally, but Belfry, Midlands.
Yeah.
How did you deliver those from Scotland? With great difficulty and lots of motorway miles.
Really good question. I mean, I think I just kind of said yes, and I was no stranger to the red-eye flights. I just would kind of be where I needed to be, and I think, I think not being afraid to kind of get on the early flights, get on the late flights, kind of do whatever you need to do to be there. That even if I wasn't geographically local, my clients would never have known that.
Yeah.
And I think I've always kind of taken that quite seriously, and I'm just old enough to kind of still be quite old-fashioned about business, that I remember life before Teams and before Zoom, and that was kind of one of the things that led me to leave consultancy. Was I kind of realised how much time I was spending just on a screen and on Teams, and actually I'm a bit more old-fashioned when it comes to doing business. I like to do things in person. I like to kind of see my clients, and I think now I know we'll kind of come to this, but kind of now having gone out on my own, having a smaller pool of clients that I deliver fewer projects with, means I can be a lot more personal about it, and I like that. I really do like that.
We're going to move back towards that. That is the direction of travel. I think, this is you correctly identified when you were researching me that I have a number of interests, one of which is another podcast called Explore AI, which we're in the process of launching, and we've got some mutual friends that have been on that and things. But there is so much talk at the moment about AI speeding up everything and giving people this enormous power. And I think one of the sort of unintended bonus consequences of that is that it is going to free people up to do the human-to-human stuff that really matters.
Massively.
If we can, all the grunt work is done by, I don't know, AI agents, robots, whatever. I'm not going to get down that road. And it frees us up to get out on site and have those face-to-face meetings and really do that nitty-gritty, because, there's not going to be any AI or robots installing waste treatment plants and doing rendering and, placing furniture in rooms.
Not yet,
and
anyway.
Like no, not yet.
I think I remember I've been talking to my brother-in-law, who's a lawyer, about this, where I feel like project management and consultancy is still, I think it's a while off being taken over by the robots. I think it's probably going to be one of the last industries to
let's hope so.
to get wrapped up.
We're both out of business. We'll have to look for
and I think as well, because hotels in particularly as a sector, it can't be virtualized. So, retail, offices, healthcare, all these things are kind of being taken and done remotely and, delivered by drones and delivered by everything. But actually a hotel and travel the point of it is you have to go there. So these buildings have to exist. So I thought that's a sector I'm going to stay in, because they're always going to need to exist. And
I mean, the reason I drew you on that nationwide point is because we're a nationwide company based in Scotland.
You're everywhere.
And all of our work is probably, most of it is within the M25 or certainly within 150 miles of London.
Yeah.
We do have consultants based out of the office downstairs, but they're nowhere near as busy as their colleagues in that area, and it's where the chimney pots are, isn't it? It's just
go where the work is.
Exactly,
that's the nature of our job.
Live where it's beautiful and go where the work
is.
That's good. That's another chat for another day.
Yeah.
So within all these really cool projects that you've been involved in, you must have seen some absolute howlers. I want to pull the war stories out of you. If you can think of anything that is tree related or ecology related or anything like that, would be even better for our listeners. But can you sort of list two or three of the top sort of howlers? I know you can't obviously say what project it was on.
Oh yeah. I'll not mention any names.
No, don't mention any names. We don't want to get into trouble.
Yeah, actually...
Where do things go wrong?
I was going to say, I feel like I've got so many and where to start.
Oh, right, well, we'll just keep going with that. That's fine.
But definitely, and I'm not naming any names or projects at all here, but I remember quite recently one particular project where there was an outbuilding that had somehow been missed from the BAT surveys that were done at the very start, because it wasn't originally in scope. So the site had been surveyed, all the planning had gone in, it was all consented, and then this little extra outbuilding was sort of brought into the scheme halfway through, but everyone forgot. The architect and the landscape architect forgot that it had actually never been surveyed. The contractor goes in, and there were 3 roosts within this building, and so this building that was meant to be turned into, I think they were going to make it into a sauna or something, like a wellness kind of cottage. That didn't move forwards. They had to wait for the full cycle of the roosting season to come through. Other projects, definitely tree-related situations involving big storms, which sometimes big storms were timed quite conveniently for the projects, which clients would tell us, oh, there was a big storm and that tree that we wanted to get rid of, it just fell down.
It's just fallen over.
So that you'd hear that sometimes, and you'd question that. But and then I suppose a non arboricultural related, like one of the war stories I will never forget is one project we were working on in London, and it was in the end turned to be the most spectacular project, but it was real kind of tricky in the trenches going through it. It was, for several reasons, became horrifically delayed, etc. It was a very complicated contract, and I'll not kind of get into the jargon of the terminology, but it had 7 separate sections to the contract, and then there were kind of 10 subsections to that. So we basically had to issue completion about 50 times. And I remember last working day of the year of 2025, it would have been, 18th of December or something. And notoriously, every client wants to be finished for Christmas. And I don't know if you ever get this, that kind of people want surveys done, planning in, everything has to be done by Christmas for some unknown reason. And I had, on that last day of the year, I had 3 projects completing, or 3 practical completions to issue, which for the project manager, and I was also contract administrator alongside that, which again, I'll not bore you with the intricacies of that, but it's a lot of responsibility to kind of officially sign off the project. And it had to be done by 5:00 that day. And I remember just that whole day. The night before had been our team Christmas night out. I'd not been drinking, I'd not done anything, because I knew that on that last day, it was kind of, it was D-Day. And the hair pulling out that was a result of that to bring it all together.
That whole fake deadline thing, I've done emails on it and all sorts and videos on it, and somebody said to me the reason for it is just purely to do with determination dates and timelines, and the fact that they can sort of buy themselves 2 weeks, but in my experience it doesn't make any difference, because we have all our customers screaming at us, I need to get it in before Christmas. Like, nobody's going to look at it, but that doesn't
I was
matter,
probably the project manager calling you saying, I need it by Christmas, Matt, I need it by Christmas.
100%.
I think it's so that clients can rest easy over Christmas, isn't it? It's really, it's relieving other people's stress. But
there is definitely a point to that. Yeah. Have you seen any like really expensive mistakes as a result of people not addressing sort of tree and ecology issues early on?
Yeah, but it's mainly related to delays. Yeah. And delays are so costly. And it comes back to our friends of, nesting birds, roosting bats, newts, believe it or not. People may not be as aware of that, but there's conservations that relate to reptiles as well. And I remember one particular project, and it was a tree that was on a footpath that... it was part of the approach into the building, and it was actually a really early part of the groundworks that had to be dealt with before the foundations could be finished. And again, this one tree had a bird's nest in it. And the whole kind of program had to be altered to move everything so that tree wasn't touched until nesting season was over. It's time-related delays always. Delays
is the key
and
one.
That's the most costly thing.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand that until they're into it. Yeah. Particularly... maybe on smaller schemes where there's bridging finance involved and options and all this sort of stuff, and they think it's going to get boxed off really quickly, and it starts to run. I've had early stage property developers actually in tears on the phone to me before, and we've tried to kind of help them out as best we possibly can do. But you're quite right. If something's out of season, you can't do bat surveys in the middle of the winter. They've got to be done between May and September. So. If you're out of the survey season, that's it. There's nothing you can do about that.
Well, you can't chop down a tree in June.
No, absolutely, absolutely
can't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think, because you're on the other side of the fence somewhat, do you think that ecologists and arboriculturalists, tree and countryside people, do you think that they understand what it is that goes on in a development project, or is, in your experience, they're just very, very focused on their own specialism, or have you come across people where their knowledge base will bleed into what it is you actually do and what you're working with as well? Because we tend to find, particularly with ecology, maybe not so much with arboriculture, because there's been a route in from practical tree surgery, which is more commercial. Particularly with ecologists, we find that they tend to be extremely focused when they need to sometimes be a little bit more broad and a little bit more understanding of what's going on. You're smiling, so I think there's something there.
Yeah, it can vary, and I think you always hope for a level of pragmatism with your specialist consultants in that field, but obviously their role in the team is to, defend and protect the trees and the wildlife. And I think often when they are a sub-consultant to the landscape architect, it works better.
Right.
Because obviously your landscape designer, landscape architect, they're responsible for everything externally. And sometimes they'll then subcontract or have in-house their specialists, like the arboriculturist, the ecologist, sometimes even the archaeologists, which will not get started on them. But yeah, often when they're kind of under the one umbrella, it can be a bit more, pragmatic. But sometimes when it's sort of, perhaps a one-man band of somebody that just, is deeply passionate about trees, there's perhaps
there's not a lot of
a bit less flex, but that's what they're there to do.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny that point, because you can spin it either way depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
If you've got a one man band, you've got a single point of contact. They're generally going to be fairly responsive.
Yeah.
You might be a very large part of their potentially of their business.
Yeah, they're a sole trader.
They're going to be there for you. The flip side is they might also be terribly overworked and not very responsive, etc., etc. So it's such a difficult space to work in. Depending on, I think this question, it probably is dependent on the end client and the value of the scheme. But do you think that your clients, the people you work with, do you think they see the natural environment as an asset or as a constraint when they're developing things? And obviously, I know you can't talk about specifics, but I have a familiarity with, for instance, the Belfry, and there's lots of big trees around there. London developments, lots of big trees and things like that. I see so many, or over the course of my sort of 30-year career, I've seen so many instances of where a scheme might have a beautiful tree, for instance, it's a real nice asset, and it just gets trashed through development. Do you think they see it as assets, or do you think they see it as a constraint?
Again, I think it can be really mixed. I think generally people do see, the nature and the natural elements of their site as an asset, kind of particularly as these days there's so much that's been urbanized, and there's so much kind of concrete and ugly building that's dominated a lot of the landscape.
Yeah.
And I think particularly resorts and those sort of bigger assets, they do want to really hold on to the integrity of their landscape and what they've got, and kind of lean into that natural aspect. But I think, to be honest, the responsibility is really with the people designing the buildings and designing the developments, that actually how is that working around what's already there. Don't put, 100-metre square building on top of, trees. If you've got other pockets of land that you can use, do so. And I think that sustainability element is just becoming more and more of a given in architectural design and landscape design, that people are, really realising the importance of retaining the natural features.
If you're going to a beautiful hotel somewhere, if it's got some beautiful trees and some beautiful landscaping, that's that enhances the experience, doesn't it? Nobody necessarily wants to be in a concrete jungle.
Yeah.
If you could sort of fix one thing about the current planning system and the way things are at the moment, what would it be? What frustrates you the most?
About planning specifically?
Yeah, planning specifically.
I think a lack of transparency and a lack of consistency. That I think even, obviously every council varies so much, just council to council, but I think even within individual councils, there's quite just a lack of consistency in terms of policies and adherence to policy and how you actually get planning through. So yeah, an overcomplicated process, which I think
they released a couple of days ago. They're bringing out an AI tool to speed up the assessment.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
See,
that was my reaction as well.
It will do.
Yeah.
It will do, because ultimately all you've got to do is upload a report and say, does this meet the standard? But when we start to think about pragmatism, etc., etc., you know, it'll be interesting to see how this plans out. But yeah, I mean, my personal opinion is that the system is broken as it stands at the moment. There are too many people. There's a lack of consistency through the development process, 100%. And, you know, we are seeing a lot of graduates in particular going into local planning authorities, and they're not being well supported. Yeah. And they're just burnt out within a couple of years. Yeah. You know, it's just...
I know they are so understaffed, overworked, and you almost get this tactical delay knock-on where things will get pushed back.
Delay,
or, you know, there'll be questions asked or pushback purely just to buy councils more time because they don't have resource to be able to deal with it.
I've never ever understood this, because the planning department is the one that generates the local authority fees.
Yeah.
Almost no other department does.
Yeah.
It generates fees. Where those fees go, who knows? But it generates fees. So surely if they made the process more effective, more efficient, it would generate more fees and more revenue for probably not adding a massive amount of bodies. But that's another conversation.
Yeah, it's a complicated game in the planning world.
It is. So, Henderson Dow, you went out on your own about sort of Marchish this year.
Yeah.
What on earth has motivated you to do that? Because the motivators, I know we've both got connections to entrepreneurial community.
Yes.
And most people get into this game because they want more time and they want more money, and then very quickly realise that they haven't got more time and they've got less money. So what motivated you to move out and go out on your own and start up this wonderful consultancy?
I think that increasingly I realised I had a lot of ideas about how I thought I could deliver a really good project. And I think that when I was kind of in conventional consulting under employment, I loved it. Like, I had an absolutely amazing career in that world, but I think I just started to get quite hungry for a bit more autonomy and a bit more control and a bit more kind of direct to client interface. And that kind of led me just to think, okay, well, if you've got all these great ideas, you know, back yourself and put yourself out there and see if everyone else thinks your ideas are good as well. And a lot of it really stemmed from a desire to remove a lot of what I call like the noise of project management. And that's kind of, you know, on my website, that's kind of my branding, is that I'm kind of like, I will make this simple for you, I'll make this efficient, and I'll make it bespoke. And then they're my three core principles of the, you know, simple, efficient, bespoke. That's all your clients want. They don't want 20,000 reply all emails. They don't want, you know, 100 hours of Teams calls per day. And I firmly believe that nothing gets, or very little gets achieved, you know, in those kind of contexts. There's so much time wasted just reading emails. Anyway, that's kind of a story for another day. But I really just kind of felt this desire to want to deliver projects and deliver them rather than write emails about delivering them, and be sort of back in the trenches of projects a bit more, working really closely with clients, decision maker clients, so entrepreneurs, private developers, you know, people who want to spend money developing an asset, they want to build something, they want to refurbish something, but how to start that process, you know, that's where I come in. And I'm like, okay, if you've got money you want to spend on a building, I'm your girl, you know, I'll take you through that process. And I think, that was what really excited me, which I think probably harks back to my ops days, is that, you know, I started in hotels as an operator, you know, doing, and I've almost kind of come full circle, and my style of project management now is sort of back.
People just, I think we all lose sight in business sometimes, that people are coming to us because they want a problem solved. They're moving towards us because they want a problem solved. Yeah. If we then create a whole load of new problems for them and up the ante, and your email point is so spot on there. Yeah. I'm still being CC'd into emails for a renewable energy project that we've not been involved with.
I feel quite passionately about CCs and reply all.
I just keep saying no to take me off this list,
Yeah.
and I keep getting it, and it's to do with like shipping forecasts and things like that. I'm like, I don't need to know.
Does that count as CPD for you, Matt?
Yeah, probably. It's like I just don't need this. Stop it. But yeah,
and I think it's of course there's a level of diligence that has to happen, and I fully respect that in the project process. But I remember some of the reports that I would have to write, and you're writing these enormous sort of 20, 30, 40-page reports that are going back up, through your clients, that are then going back up to the banks via their bank monitors.
Yeah.
But then I had clients that would sort of confess to me, oh yeah, actually, no, I didn't really read that, but, thanks for the report. And you're like, oh, I spent 3 days, stressing over this beautiful report. And then you realise that you're sort of just doing things for the sake of doing, which often has to happen in big projects with, big kind of debt that needs serviced. But that's why I now specialise in these smaller private developer-led projects where decisions are made quicker. They want things to move quick. You're an entrepreneur. You want things to happen quickly.
Yeah, yesterday.
Time kills all deals, time kills all projects. And you have to do things properly. But I think there's an opportunity to deliver things well if you deliver it fast.
And that in itself, if you choose to work with entrepreneurs, and we'll use that term rather than business owners.
Yes, there's a difference.
There is a big difference that are moving fast. They've got these big sort of entrepreneurial ideas. They don't really care how you get there. They just want it to happen.
Yeah.
That takes a special kind of person to sit between that and the very sort of dyed-in-the-wall sort of architectural professionals, landscape.
But I also like that because entrepreneurs really trust you because they haven't got time not to.
Yeah.
Is that, entrepreneurs are too busy to be trying to control freak their own projects because they're kind of saying, okay, right, I need you to deal with this. And they trust you. And for me, that's a really exciting opportunity to really partner with my clients. And I'm with them for the long term. And I'm not kind of out there, casting my net super wide because actually I keep the pool quite tight. And I love meeting new people and new opportunities, and I am always looking for the right new opportunity. But I think that's the key word: is it's got to be the right new opportunity because it's personalities.
There's real power in saying no.
Yeah.
And I think that is the beauty of having your own consultancy is rather than getting thrown into projects that perhaps you're like, oh no, really?
Here we go.
Here we go again. 400 bed refit of a city centre hotel.
Oh, yes.
You can sort of pick and choose a little bit, but the power in no is really quite something. So I guess probably one final question. What's the one thing that you would want to change about your sector and your industry? If you could wave a magic wand, what's the one thing that you would change?
The overcomplication of it. That I think people think projects is a dark art, and it isn't. It is a specialist area, and I think you have to be really good at it. But I think it doesn't have to be complicated. Yeah. And that's what I'm passionate about, is kind of coming into projects and demystifying things.
Demystifying projects.
Yeah.
That needs to be the sub H2 headline on your website.
Yeah.
Harriet, it's been brilliant having you on chatting about all of this. I think it's a really unique twist for our listeners that have to listen to me bang on talking about tree and ecology surveys all the time, and to hear it from the other side, I think is going to resonate with a lot of the listeners. If anybody wants to reach out to you because they've got £100 million project that they want done and it ticks all your boxes, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
My website, so hendersondow.com.
Okay.
And all the contact details are there.
Perfect. So. We'll put that in the description. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. We'll speak to you soon. Cheers.